Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum listeners. Here we are again with another episode of Deenversation. Assalamu alaikum Ahmad.
Wa alaikum assalam.
How are you doing?
Great. I'm doing great.
So we are most likely having the 27th night and may Allah accept the ibadat from everyone in the ummah. What are we discussing today? Is it something related to Laylatul Qadr or?
Yeah, I want to get something about Laylatul Qadr just out of the way first of all. So today is a really blessed night. We have many mentions of this from the Prophet, and it's very important. Like almost every Muslim knows that. So shouldn't we be just talking about this episode? I can see that many people might have this point raised in their mind. I had this in my mind. Shouldn't we be focusing on our ibadah at this time instead of making a podcast right now, like as we're doing?
That's a good point. It's a fair point, and I think I can't. The importance of qiyam, if that's what you're mentioning, can't be overemphasized. I agree. However, we need to also understand that doing a podcast like this or other dawah efforts, they are also ibadah. They are also done to seek the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they are done, inshallah, with the intention to solve the ummah's problems. Now, it could be a practical discussion that what is needed more at this time. And I'm not going into that discussion taking any sides, but I'm just trying to highlight that, look, the ummah right now is suffering. So you look at the ummah anywhere, close to you in Pakistan, you must have seen all the beggars in these days particularly, who it seemed you could see that they don't have enough to do their iftar and manage their suhoor. Or if you look at other bigger problems like Gaza, like Kashmir, like the Uyghur Muslims, like the Rohingya Muslims. So you'll understand that for those people, they look up to us. They know that we are free. We have the ability and capability to help them. And they must be praying for our help. They must be praying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that please send someone from them to help us. So I think we also should not undermine the importance of dawah, the importance of such discussions. And such discussions in this time also become more important because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala opens the heart of Muslims. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chains the shayateen in this month. So people are more receptive. So whatever content we produce and can get through in these days, in these weeks, in this last ashra is, if not equally important, it is important. So I think we should be having these discussions. And anyhow, people like me and you can't really stand all night in qiyam.
I don't know, so, you are a young man.
You're a young man, but you have many other things on your mind, I think. So I think if we get some time to sit down and discuss some topics, and it's not going to take long anyhow, so maybe 10-15 minutes, so let's do it. Don't feel guilty about it.
So just getting into the topic for today, and that was a great preclusion that you gave us for your reason, and I feel that it completely justifies it, and I guess not by a stretch, but it can be considered an act of ibadah what we're doing.
Inshallah, may Allah accept it as such.
Yeah. So from some of my friends and from some of my close family, I've been getting reviews of our podcast. They've been teasing me about it, like all of the reviews and everything. So I just wanted to discuss that. So one of the reoccurring, one reoccurring point in the feedback that they give me is that there seems to be a trend in our episodes that it's kind of a complaint of theirs, that always whenever I pose a question, the answer always seems to track back to because Allah said so, or because this is what's written, or because this is what Allah said, and we can't say anything about that, or we don't know why or how or when, but just because Allah said. So many of my friends have taken not offense, but they're quite perturbed by that. They're like, what is the point of making the episodes if we're always just going to track back to this one point? Like, is there going to be no rationale involved in the points that we make or how we try to discuss them. Or so, what audience is Deenversation really for? Like, who are we trying to target here?
Mm-hmm. Or maybe even before that, the question could be, are we targeting those people or not?
Yeah.
So is their question justified or not?
Yeah.
It's a very interesting question. And I'm thinking, so first of all, I think, and we had this discussion somewhere, but let's see. We need to understand that these are two different audiences. One audience is youth, people who are convinced of the Islamic Aqidah. So they are convinced that there is an Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who has the right to legislate, who has the right to be followed, to be heard. And then we are looking for guidance that, okay, what does he want from us? How does he intend to solve the problem of poverty, the problem of disunity, the problem of war, whatever? That's one audience. And then there is another audience. And that audience is who have doubts about, is it really Allah who has the right, or is it that Allah just wants us to, let's say, pray 5 times a day and he has left all other things to us? Or even they have doubts, is there an Allah? Is there such an entity or not? Now, we do have some content for this category as well. But most of our content is actually not for this category. We can make more content for this category, and this is a very specialized content. And the content is actually about the discussions of the existence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So discussions on atheism, and then agnosticism, and similarly the discussion of the need of messengers and the discussion on the proof of Quran. So we had some of it, we'll be having more of it inshallah in the coming days and months, but many other discussions which are related to the ahkam and the solutions of Islam to problems, that may not be for such a person who in first instance, who is not really convinced about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why would he be interested in listening to the solutions? Now the problem is, such kind of people, what would they say? They would say, no, but give me proof, give me rational proof for this hukam. And there I would tell you, we could do an effort, and I'm sure with many ahkam, maybe all ahkam, we could prove to a sane mind that the solution of Allah is very justified, is very reasonable, is very rational, is maybe even very
We have
scientific.
the episode coming up for philosophy, and just in my research in that, I noticed that many great philosophical thinkers, Islamic philosophical thinkers from the past, they always used theological debates to rationalize some Islamic rulings.
So we leave that for the next episode, but we could do this, but try to understand the danger of doing this and try to understand the weakness of doing this. So when I was living in the West, we had this discussion that, people used to try to convince their class fellows on Islam. And the discussion would normally seldom be about Aqidah, existence of Allah. The discussion would start somewhere, why do you marry 4 wives? Why is it permissible in Islam to do that? Why is it that the daughter gets half the share? Why is it that the daughter has, or the females have half the witness? So why is it that 2 female witnesses are equal to 1 in most of the thing? Questions like that. And we would be on the back foot, and we would be trying to, okay, statistically this, statistically that, and so many women and so many men, and men die and women are alive, and all those things. And let's say, best case scenario, a semester of 4 or 5 months passes, and the guy gets convinced on question number 1. Do you think after question number 1 he would say the Shahada?
Of course not, yeah.
What would be after question number 1?
And question number 2, question
Exactly.
number 3.
And then question number 3. And the whole degree would pass. And by the end of the degree, let's say 4 semesters, we would just have resolved 4 questions. And then more questions, like hundreds of other questions would be. So my point here is,
I think that's quite a exaggeration, because I think there are very few things that non-Muslim, someone that lives by their own, intuitive, ethical, moral code, I think there are a few things that they would take offense to within Islam's, parameters. So I would say the 4 wives.
Okay, let's start counting them and let's see how many do you think there would be. You can count them on 1 hand or 2 hands.
I can count them on probably 2 hands.
Okay.
Yeah, 4 wives. I think I don't know what else. Maybe alcohol, but people can very easily see why that's
then they would say little amounts of alcohol.
Little amounts.
Yeah. Why not? Why are little amounts of alcohol not permissible?
No, I don't think it.
That's what they say. It's a huge discussion.
I don't
Yeah, it's a huge discussion.
But people nowadays are very, Gen Zers are drinking way less alcohol.
Yeah, exactly. That's the point.
Millennials.
So you have Saudi shuyukh giving fatwa
Yeah.
that little amounts of alcohol that does not affect your senses is permissible. There are fatwa of this. So again, that would be another
And
point.
he's wrong, yeah.
Yeah. So that would be another point that they would
But they
say.
wouldn't take up that point, I don't think. But anyways, okay, for sure, if you want, let's count 2 of those. And hijab, I think, would be a problem.
Thank you very much.
And let's say gender roles,
Very good.
5. And
4. Okay.
4.
Now
And
5.
I can't think of anything else. If you
Okay.
can.
So
add to
I
that
just
list.
mentioned to you the witness thing. Huge.
Witness?
Yeah. So they say that why is it that 1 male witness equals to 2 female witnesses?
Of course, okay.
Okay.
You can, but you can
That
keep
would
that
be-
in. Sure, let's make this a category, feminism.
Okay, when you
Sure.
make categories, then yes, maybe 3-4 categories in total. Then you have the inheritance issue.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
we'll discuss that in an episode as well, inshallah. But this is an issue. Then you have.
But basically, when you want someone to subscribe to a view or
But just a second.
paradigm.
Then you have the jihad issue.
Yeah.
The jihad being offensive.
No, so what are you saying? So should they jump the gun and just look at Islam broadly instead of seeing the rulings and
I'm
learning
saying
about the
exactly
rulings?
the opposite. They
That's
should not
that's
jump
quite
the
a
gun.
cowardly thing to do, though, because
No,
that
no.
means that if someone, basically what you're saying is that if someone sees rulings, then they would never ever get rationally convinced.
I'm not saying that.
Okay.
Rather, what I'm saying is that if someone has a problem with Islam, so there are people, normal people, who see the rahmah and the barakah and the solutions of Islam. They understand that. Now comes someone who is critical about it. And he says, no, but I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced. The moment someone comes and he wants to be convinced, the right thing is not the ahkam. The right thing is not the sharia. Rather, the right thing is a discussion, because he actually doesn't have a problem with just the sharia. He has a problem with the shari, the one who is giving the sharia. So you have to have a discussion there. You have to take back that discussion and discuss who has the right to tell what the dress of a man and a woman should be. Who has a right to tell and fix how many marriages a man or a woman can do? Who is that? And have the discussion there. That's what I'm saying.
No, but they don't take offense to when the government tells them that you have to work and you have to do all of these. The government gives us so many rules, but they also give us equality in some things, and people can rationalize the rules that the government gives you. The government tells you not to kill. That's illegal. We can understand that. Not to drunk drive. We can understand that. Not to drive without your seatbelt. We can understand that. Not to there's so many things that we can rationalize that are fixed in our laws and that are passed in our constitution. And all of these things can be rationally explained. Our rulers do so many things that are irrational at times, but we can rationalize them by some stretch.
Interestingly, it's a philosophical point, but interestingly, most of the rules that the governments implement on people today, even in Western countries, people can only rationalize them because there was hundreds of years of religion. You take out that hundreds of years of religion, you know what happens, what is happening now in society? Postmodernism. People start questioning everything. They question, no, why any clothes? Who are you to tell us to wear anything? So they start questioning it. So similarly, why any gender?
Yeah, that's called having a brain, questioning things.
That's exactly. So if people start having such a brain, it's actually like, for me, it's brainless that they say, what gender? So they even defy science, they defy DNA, they defy physical reality, and they say, in the morning I could be a man, in the evening I could be a woman, and in between I could either be a cat or a dog.
Come on, don't do that. Look, in
Why
a previous episode, you said that science is fluid and science is what we make it out to be. Now you're saying that science is a fixed thing. When it comes to their thing, they can make science for this case's point. Let's say that science is fluid when they want it to be. Yeah.
Well, I never said science is fluid.
All right. Yeah.
And
But
I
you said
don't-
science isn't fixed and it changes all the time.
Is that not true?
That is true. Absolutely.
So yes,
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
science learns and evolves, and
Absolutely.
so many things which can't be explained by science at the moment.
Yeah.
So you don't have a general theory of science at the
Exactly,
moment. You don't, and you're looking for that.
Yeah.
So you're trying to explain things. You try to explain it with quantum physics and quantum mechanics.
Yeah. So
and
almost
you fail.
every scientific endeavor starts with a philosophical question. So we have questioning. When you try to limit questioning, then you limit basically progress of
We're
the
not
human
limiting
society
question.
as a
good,
whole.
Good point. So we are not limiting questioning.
Yeah.
But
What
we
are you
saying
limiting
is-
questioning for?
No, we are not. But what we are saying is that if someone has an aqidah issue, if he wants to understand why God has the right to rule, why God has the right to say what is right and what is wrong, he should actually not look at the rulings. He can't. If he has a problem already, he can't really fix them. And he would not arrive at, oh, okay, because look, you answer all the questions, and then he would ask you, why do you pray 2 rak'ah in the morning and 4 in the noon and 3 in the evening? What will you tell them? You won't have any answer. Can you justify the 2, the 4, the 3? You can't. It's Allah who said.
Yeah.
Let me give you another example, a more practical one. Happened to me.
All
Okay.
right.
So I was like you when I was young, and I had heard certain things, read certain things about science. So I was working for this company called Siemens in Germany, and I started praying there for some odd reason. And there was a colleague who was a very convicted Christian, and he came up to me one day and he said, Basir, why don't you eat pork? And I said, pork, it's a very swine, and these are very dirty animals. And he goes, but what if I ensure that the one you are eating is clean? And I said, no, but it's also a very dishonorable animal. So, it's relationships with the female, and it's very dishonorable.
Yeah.
And he said, okay, but what if I present you as a khanzir, a swine, which has never had any contact with the opposite gender? Then I started getting confused. And then I said, no, but they have tapeworms. And then he said, yeah, but the tapeworms, they were for the warm climate. In our cold climate, they don't. But even if you have doubt, what I'll do is I'll get it checked from a lab and ensure that the piece of meat which you are getting doesn't have any worms or anything.
Yeah.
What do I tell him?
That's quite interesting. Now, if you are an atheist, if you don't have, let's say, a fixed moral code like Islam, a moral code that dates back 1400 years, then you would be rational, you would use your senses, you would be like this swine that he's talking about. It has, first of all, no germs, no bacteria that I should worry about. It's clean, hasn't had, any contact with the opposite gender, whatever the hell. You say all of these, you say it's completely clean, won't affect me in any way, you would eat it. Because you're using your brain right here. Yeah, you're using your brain. Now, the West also has some ethical moral codes that they go by and that have been ordained by the philosophies that have been made before them, and they go by them. So if you tell, an American to eat dog meat, then he would never, because dogs are considered like, pets there, and they just think it's disgusting to eat dogs. That's their ethical code that they've got for the times that, their standards, their principles change all of the time.
That's a good point.
Now,
so that means that
is that a problem?
maybe
is that a
100
problem?
years.
Is the question. Is that a problem? Is the question.
It is.
Science changes all the time, and we don't have a problem with that. But I feel like in the very near future, like you said, maybe because of this, a restriction of questioning, maybe this leads to a restriction of scientific endeavors also in Islamic
As I
society.
said, no restriction of questioning. Rather, I'm asking you, and I'm asking you here again. So, should I have eaten such a clean and a pork? Should I have eaten or not?
You're a Muslim? No.
That's the point. Jazakallah khair. So why don't we eat? Then the question again: why don't we eat pork? Why don't we eat it?
You don't have a reason for it. You don't have a reason.
I have. Otherwise,
You
I
don't.
would. Otherwise,
You don't.
That's exactly the point.
You don't have a
So
reason.
why
for
don't?
it.
Why don't I
You
eat
don't
it?
have a reason for it.
Oh, why don't I eat it? I don't eat it. I need to have a reason for not doing so.
Because
I
your
need to have-
creator told you not to.
Full stop.
That isn't a reason.
That is the reason.
That
That's,
isn't
that's the
reason.
biggest reason.
That isn't a reason.
That's the biggest reason. Qala ta'ala, qala Rasulullah. These two things are the biggest reasons, and we Muslims should be clear about it. And we Muslims should not shy away from saying it. Honestly, that's the whole point, I would say, of Deenversation. That's the whole point, to make Muslim youth understand why you do things. We don't shy away from the discussion of whether there is a God or not. The secular people do. So secularism is
So
all
let's
about...
not do Deenversation. Let's just make a tree chart, and let's just make the stump of the tree, and we write Allah there, and then the branches and everything that follows after, feminism, everything just branches back to because Allah said so.
100% right. So what we'll do is, and what we have been doing, we'll have some discussions for people like you mentioned, so your contacts. We'll have some discussions about proving the Aqidah in a rational manner.
Yeah.
We had some already, we'll have some more. These are for those people. Maybe they are 10%, 20% on our channel, or maybe 30%, I don't know.
Yeah.
Then most of the discussions, so the other remaining 70, 80% discussions, would actually be for those youth who are past this, who are convinced rationally, okay? And they are now seeking hidayah, they are looking for, okay, but how to make sense out of certain things in the Islamic paradigm. So they don't challenge the paradigm, they don't say, God has no right to do this. Rather, they say, yes, God is there, God has a right, but how to apply it? What is the hukam? What is the understanding? What is the clarity about this? What is the purity about this? How to implement this? This will be then 70, 80% of our discussions.
So it's still a deflection technique.
It's not a deflection technique. Deflection from what?
Deflection from addressing why we do something.
I am
its
telling
roots
you,
are.
I am again telling you,
We
do
just shift
something.
the blame. We just shift not the blame, but the question from ourselves to Allah. Because yes, we've been told by Allah, but the thing is that we don't have, do we not have questioning beyond that? Can we not ask, why did Allah ordain this? Or can we not, if we don't ask why Allah ordained this, then can we not link it rationally to something that
Good
we
point.
have already?
Good point. So, first of all, if Allah, we could do that. So we could do two things. We would only say that we do this beyond Allah, what that Allah told us, if Allah has told us to do this because of this. So if Allah says, this is good for you, okay, or this is bad for you, and don't do this, and this is good for you, do this, then we would say, Allah told us, and we do it because it is good for us, and we don't do it because it is bad for us.
All right.
Because Allah told us.
All right.
If Allah did not say that, then we might try to find the hikmah behind something, okay? So what benefit could it have? But we would not take it as the reason. The reason would be, Allah said so. We would differentiate between these two things. So we don't eat pork because Allah said so. And then the wisdom behind it might be, we won't get sick, we won't become unhealthy, we won't become lazy, we won't become whatever, all those things. That's the hikmah. That will never become the reason. Why? Because the entity, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who disallowed us from eating it, has not given a reason. So whenever there is not a reason, we would look for it, we could look for it, but that would be the wisdom, not the reason. The reason would be because Allah said so. It's very, very important. And again, this is Islam. This is the problem. Look, if someone wants to be convinced scientifically, rationally of everything, is he following Islam or is he following his mind and his own heart and his own conviction? What is he following?
Well, that depends. Someone rational would say that if there is a perfect God exists in a world that He's created, and He's making humans, He's making them with a moral code, He's making them with a moral code, He's made their moral code, their thinking, He understands what's going on in their minds, right? If He understands what's going on in their minds, then the easiest way to test them and to make them believers of Him is to align their moral code and the rulings that He sent down.
Good point. Now Ahmad, tell me, He is the perfect God, no doubt. Are we the perfect human beings? Isn't it that most of the people who go astray actually don't have an issue here, rather they have an issue here, which means that they know what is right, but they don't want to do it. either because they are
You
in
say
a
most of
position
the
of
people
power.
astray have a problem here, but I say that most of the people that aren't astray may have a problem here, maybe because they're not thinking with their mind. You know, there
What is
isn't-
not letting them think with their mind? That's the
I'm
thing.
asking you, address, look, there's a perfect God. Anything that he makes, let's say he makes an imperfect being, even if he does make an imperfect being.
No, he
this
has
being-
made imperfect beings.
All right.
We are all imperfect
He's
beings.
made
There's no
an
doubt about
imperfect
it.
being.
Yeah?
He's made an imperfect
Yeah,
being.
he has made us with
Yeah.
these shortcomings.
Why hasn't he made a set of rules for that imperfect being that align with that being's
It does.
moral code that,
does.
that he's made?
It does.
It does.
It does.
It
But
does.
there are people
Which
who
part
are...
of stoning aligns with our moral code?
Oh, it's very, very important. So the part of stoning, what is it? It is actually for ibra. Ibra means deterrence.
All right.
So the crime is so big that you don't want it happening again. So you want to nip the evil in the bud.
All right.
How do you do that?
Which evil in the bud are you nipping when you tell non-Muslim women, not even Muslim women, but non-Muslim women in a Muslim state have to cover their bodies in a niqab and a hijab and
Subhanallah.
everything?
Very simple. Very simple. I think the biggest relief for a woman today in the West is if she would start covering.
That's
How?
for them to decide.
Just say,
That's
just,
for them to
no,
decide.
just say. You hear
Is
me
that
out.
not for them to decide?
No, it's not. Hear me
Alright.
out. If they don't do that, what happens? There is a market, an internal competition between women. What's the competition about? To attract men's looks and attention. How do they do that? By uncovering themselves. Where does it stop? Nowhere.
That's
it's a death
insensible
spiral.
point. That's an insensible point because we are trying to attract more viewers, more attention on YouTube and everything. Life is a competition, whether you take it in any sense. Men in the gym would want to see whose shoulders are more defined, whose biceps are more defined. It's a competition. There's nothing wrong with competition.
There's nothing wrong with there's not with every competition. So this competition is a very deadly competition. It's a very limited resource a woman has got. Okay, there are too many bidders out there, and it is going to last for a very short time. So, and it's not, again, the point is the Creator knows very well what human beings actually need. Human beings are impatient. They have at different life stages, they have different mentalities. And at this young age, they can't really value the relationships which they are going to need in a later age. They can't value those. They can't look beyond this temporary thing. And that's why we humans, we have constraints. We have really decision-making constraints. These are called biases. They are cognitive biases. You can read about them. I usually teach in my courses about 40 of them. I try to teach 40 of those biases. Maybe there are close to 100 biases. Now, we humans have these biases. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't have them. So His rulings are actually taking us out from them.
Okay. So, yeah.
So we have an idea now that, again, just let's sum it up for the audience, that some of the content, not all of it, not most of it, some of the content would be for people
Atheists.
yeah, you could say atheists. Okay, so some of them would be for people who have questions, doubts about the existence of Allah, about the veracity of messengers, about the authenticity of the Quran. Some of it. Very important Aqidah concepts. But most of the content is for Muslims. So for people who already are beyond this point, okay, based on rational thinking, intellectually they have established that, okay, there is God, okay, we need messengers, okay, Quran is the word of Allah, no doubt in it. Now let's understand Islam. So most of the content is about understanding Islam, Deenversation. So the discussions about whatever Deen is saying.
Okay.
Okay?
That's good.
So thank you very much, listeners, for being with us, for bearing with us, maybe, and see you again with another episode. Jazakallah. Assalamu alaikum.